As a violin teacher, a question I often get asked about, often in slight desperation, is why is violin playing so hard? And truly, violin is a truly difficult instrument, and I can tell from experience. I haven't only practiced the violin, but I also have learned the piano and the guitar and many other instruments a little bit. And I can tell you from my experience that the violin is indeed one of the most difficult instruments to learn. But why? In this video, I will share exactly why the violin is such a difficult instrument. So first of all, let's get started with the layout of the violin. So first of all, we have the fingerboard over here. And as you can see, there's no frets, there's no keys, there's no buttons, there's nothing. Basically, you should find the notes by yourself, by touch. And especially if you are totally inexperienced and have no musical experience, this can be extremely difficult. Especially when you realize that if you would just place your finger 0.01 inch incorrectly, you would hear a different sound. So you have to be extremely precise. And for many players, it can take years until they mastered where to place their fingers. And even professional players can sometimes miss a note, just because it can be very difficult to find exactly the right location for each note. If you thought, well, that's already a big challenge, you're up for a greater challenge. If you look at the fingerboard, you will notice that on the lower parts of the fingerboard, the distances between the fingers are bigger. Whereas the higher you go up the fingerboard, the distances become smaller and smaller. Up to the point that if you would just move your finger like this, so you would just place it slightly from a different angle, you would hear a different note. So that means that you can not only rely on the muscle memory that you've got in year one, because on the moment that you change your hand, you have to learn a completely new skill set again. As you know, we are not only playing with our violin. There's also another part to it, and that is the bow. Bowing is actually, I would say, to me it is the hardest part of playing the violin. There are so many different bow strokes, and in order to execute them perfectly, that's definitely a lifelong practice. If you start playing the violin, you will soon find out that it is not just pressing a key and it suddenly sounds nice. No. You have to take your bow and you realize that no matter what you do, it will sound like this, or this. It can be very, very difficult to balance the bow, let alone keep it straight. Because if you look at the bow, from your perspective, if you think you're bowing straight and you have to bow straight in order for it to sound nice, it isn't actually straight. So you can never see if you're bowing straight. So you always need an outside mirror to check. And it's not very natural at all, because you have to move your hand not like this, like you would normally do it if you play tennis or open a door, but your hand goes backwards, but then also forwards. That's a really, really weird and unnatural motion, let alone the motion of where you are holding the violin. So that can be difficult to master. So in order to play one nice note, that can already take a few months. If you thought, well, I can handle all of that, give me the violin and let's get started practicing. I love that attitude, by the way, and definitely keep up that spirit. But before you even start playing the violin, you have to tune your violin. And for most beginners, that is already a grueling process. To learn how to tune your violin can be very difficult. For instance, when I first tuned my violin in the first week, directly a string snapped into my face and I was scared to death to tune the violin again. So basically there's a lot of rules when it comes to tuning the violin, and you need a very good ear to listen if your tuning is correct. So even learning how to tune the instrument before you start playing can be a big difficulty. Now the funniest thing in all of this is that on the moment that you feel tense when playing the violin, and you can imagine sometimes you feel a little bit tense when having to take care of the 0.01 inch on the left side and the right side needs to be perfectly straight. But if you're slightly tense and not relaxed, directly your sound will be messed up because your right hand will start shaking. And this happens. So yes, you have to relax, even though you know it's that hard, even though you're struggling so much. The only thing that will make your tone sound nice is to relax, so to breathe. And sometimes, I can tell you, it is hard to remember to breathe when thinking of everything that you need to think about when you play the violin. All in all, it can just take a lot of time before a simple song, even like Row, Row, Row Your Boat or Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, can sound decent. And that can be very frustrating. And you might wonder, well, why as a violin teacher would you make this video, and wouldn't that keep everyone from learning the violin? Well, first of all, you have to understand something about violinists. A lot of us are very, very eager to challenge ourselves. Otherwise, we wouldn't learn to play classical violin or even folk violin in the first place. Because basically, the fun is in the challenge. If we would just want to relax, we would probably, watch Netflix or something like that. That's relaxing. But violin playing is challenging us. It helps us to see new worlds. And truly, if you start learning how to play the violin, you learn so much more than just playing the violin. You learn about patience, you learn about commitment, you learn about music, classical music, you learn about folk music, about all styles of music. You make friends that are also playing musical instruments. There's so much more to it than just the stress of practice. But also, I tell you this because a lot of you are starting violinists, and a lot of you feel like you're not moving forward fast enough. You feel like, oh, I feel like I'm not that talented. I saw that guy on YouTube who is already playing Xardas after 1 year, or that girl who played Vivaldi Spring after 3 years. And I want to tell you, this is definitely not the norm. First of all, on YouTube, it feels like everyone is losing 50 kilos or 100 pounds in like 3 months and having a 6-pack and whatever. Like if you would rely on YouTube to shape your view of the world, you would definitely not be happy. And the same is true for violin playing. You will always see the exceptions because those videos rank very, very high. Even the young children who are extremely good at playing, those people who are adults that learned to play perfectly in only the span of 1 year. And you have to understand that the normal people like you and me, are normally not that popular on YouTube. And that makes sense. So definitely try to think of that and keep that in mind, that it is normal to take a lot of time and it doesn't tell anything about your talent. Because the reality is that violin playing is truly extremely difficult. If you play the violin for 1 year, you normally still sound like a beginner. And if you play the piano for 1 year, a lot of people will be more impressed with what you've learned if you would show it to a total stranger. That's why it is so important to share this video with your partner or with somebody that might not always understand how difficult it is to even make a simple song sound more or less decent. That's a huge accomplishment. But people who don't play the violin don't always see how difficult it is and what an achievement it is to even play a simple song more or less nice. So I hope that you can take that with you, and that, if people are maybe a little bit critical of you, that you're not sounding nice, or that we are often our own worst critics, that you take in mind that violin is definitely a very, very difficult instrument. And that the fact that you're challenging yourself to do so is already saying something about your character. I think it must be positive. And also it doesn't tell anything about if you will ever learn how to play the violin. Because it is definitely a journey of many years instead of just a few months or just a year of practice. Often it will take at least 5 years, and often even longer, until you truly reach the sound that you imagined before you started playing. But I hope that along the way you will enjoy yourself, you will learn favorite songs, you will make friends, and you will enjoy the process of learning. And if you would like some help with that, I also recommend to become a member of my online violin school, Julia's Violin Academy. It's a violin school that is made for adult beginners. So we are all adult beginners learning together. And it's truly a very supportive environment where everyone knows how difficult it is to learn the violin and where everyone is supporting each other to practice every day. We do daily practice sessions on Zoom. There are step-by-step lesson plans. We send each other updates in a private group. It is just a lot of fun, and you will see that it can motivate you a lot to go through the process of all these years. Well, thank you so much for watching. If this video was helpful to you, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel for my next violin lesson of next week. Keep at it. Bye bye.